There it is. There it is. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Who here has moved to a new city and felt immediately at home? Who has? Raise your hands. Write in the chat. Say something. Let's see. Okay, who here has moved to a new state and made friends right away? Okay, well, despite the overnight successes here, the reality is for most immigrants, adjusting to a new life in a new country is challenging, it's exciting, it's terrifying. It's terrifying, right? Now, for those who have not immigrated, imagine arriving to a new country and you can't speak the language, nor you understand the culture. Let's talk basic survival here. You do not understand what people are telling you. You cannot communicate what you need or what you want to anyone. How do you get a job, a driver's license, or even buy groceries at the supermarket? What about the more complicated things like figuring out how to rent a place or get health insurance, to name a couple? It is impossible to exist in the new country without the ability to speak or read the local language or understand the culture. Now, let's take this to the United States. Despite the challenges of living in the United States as a foreign born, and trust me, there are many challenges, the immigrant population in America continues to grow, regardless of economics or the politics of the day. There are 44.7 million immigrants residing in the United States as of 2018. And by 2027, the immigrant share of the population will hit its highest in US history. And it will continue to rise according to the US Census projections, to the point that they will represent the numeric majority between 2040 and 2050. And many people might wonder, if it is that difficult to live and adapt as an immigrant in the US, why do people keep coming in such large numbers? Oh yeah, I can see many of the comments now. I'm sorry, I couldn't see them before. I moved to an hour away from my hometown and I struggled to settle into the community at first. Yeah, no immediate success there. I can imagine uprooting and moving far away, going to college as close as I got. Yeah, I can't compare. I'm all comfort, only Nashville takes time. Yeah, it's true, takes time. And this is very strange because, like I said, you would think, well, if it is that uncomfortable and if it is that hard, then why do people come in such big numbers? And then I give you these numbers here that show you that they will continue to come. So you may wonder why if it is so difficult, right? Well, as you know, for years and years, many foreign nationals are inspired to live the American dream. They choose to come here. They choose to come to the United States. Whoops, sorry. Okay, now I think you can look at my slide. For years and years, they choose to come here because, you know, they like this country. They think that there are better opportunities for them to live in this country, to have better jobs, to help their families. And if it doesn't work out, no big deal, right? You just go back to your home country. It's fine. But there are other groups of immigrants that don't necessarily fit this definition. They don't come here to pursue the American dream. And well, if they don't like it, they can't just go home because returning home is not an option. For those other immigrants, like myself, they had to flee their home without notice or preparation and leave everything behind. I'm talking about refugees and I'm talking about asylees. In 2019, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees says that every minute, 31 people were forced to flee their homes. They flee from war, from oppressive dictatorships, environmental disasters, to seek any possibility to begin their lives again. They are normally being persecuted because of their race, because of their religion, gender, or political beliefs. If we're talking about asylees, we're talking about a population of immigrants that is already in the US territory, or they are seeking admission at the US border. To obtain the international protection, they have to claim asylum. And if we talk about refugees, the refugee population are the ones that are not living, that are not residing in the US territory. They are in another country, but because their lives are at risk, because they're being persecuted, because they're being threatened, then through programs of resettlement, they are able to come here to the United States. As you can see, the United States has been and continues to be a nation of immigrants, and understanding some of the reasons why foreign nationals come to this country and who they are can help us understand how they can overcome the challenges they face, particularly here in Indiana, and how community leaders can best support and empower Indiana immigrants so they might be better adapt to their new home. This is important because especially Indiana has one of the largest growing immigrant populations in the nation. By 2022, immigrants are projected to account for 50% of the growth of the population, 50%. And by 2025, Indiana will be a minority majority state. Now, I have other 10 pages of immigration statistics I'd like to review with you, but statistics are just numbers. They don't tell the real story. People do. So instead, I would share my story with you. I am from Venezuela, as you can see here in this image, a tropical country located in the northernmost area of South America. I was born in Maracaibo, the land of the beloved sun, a place where it is regularly 95 degrees Fahrenheit all day, all year. It is so hot, you could cook an egg on your neighbor's doorstep. Not that I know anything about that. My native language is Spanish, and I grew up in a loving Christian family. I'm the oldest with a sister and a brother. You can see them there. I studied law in Venezuela, and from the moment I entered the university, I developed a passion for human rights law. I loved working with people, so I became a volunteer of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Amnesty International, as you can see in those pictures. But working in the field of human rights in Venezuela is like walking on eggshells, because Venezuela has been under a dictatorship for more than 15 years. The economic and political oppression in Venezuela caused a humanitarian nightmare of which there appears to be no end. There's no freedom of expression, there's no freedom of association, there's no economic freedoms, nor any right to health or education. Now, as a human rights lawyer, there is nothing more painful to witness, especially when it's your own country. So since 2016, I had been working as a community legal advisor and coordinator of the diffusion program of the Red Cross in Venezuela, and as a trainer in the International Humanitarian Law Department. For those of you who are not familiar with the international work of the Red Cross, I work in the assistance of immigrants in the Colombian and Venezuelan border. I provided legal orientation to immigrants in Venezuela. I was also a trainer for the International Humanitarian Law Department. I promoted human rights and protection of civilians during war times. I did this in public and private universities, armed forces components, the police, and the community in general through talks, workshops, symposiums, and all those sorts of public activities. This is something that the Red Cross does around the world. This is not something that the Red Cross specifically to Venezuela. The training of the Red Cross is very general. It's not designated to any country in a specific. They are designed to prepare the military, for example, to recognize fundamental principles on protection of persons and objects, distinctions between combatants and civilians. For example, you can't target a hospital during a war, things like that. The director of the Red Cross managed the military trainings very carefully because it is well known that the military in Venezuela openly supports the dictatorship, and these trainings are contrary to their ideology. But that year, more than 5,000 people died, and 12,000 people were imprisoned during peaceful demonstrations out on the streets. The Red Cross director asked me to assist on training the military. I agree with him because there were thousands of people being killed, tortured, imprisoned in the hands of the military. The training was absolutely necessary within the Red Cross's duties as an advocate for international humanitarian law. So as a representative of the Red Cross, I went to the military headquarters of Asylee state, which is the state I was born, to do a general training. I tried to explain to the military the differences between armed conflicts, peaceful demonstrations, and protesters' rights to demonstrate. But they did not welcome those explanations. They called me to be imprisoned and handed over to the paramilitary groups in Venezuela. After this encounter, I told the director of the Red Cross that I could not continue to meet with the military in Venezuela at all. My life was put in danger. And a few days later, I would live the consequences of that. 3 days after the training, I was kidnapped by the military. They were all aware of my counter-revolutionary ideas that I was spreading on behalf of the Red Cross, because I committed the unforgivable crime of instructing the military to not fire indiscriminately on protesters. They kidnapped me in my neighborhood and drive me to a remote location for interrogation. At gunpoint, I was commanded not to put any more anti-revolutionary ideas into the heads of the military. They accused me of many things. They beat me up. They accused me of hating my government. They said I didn't love my country. They insulted me. They called me a traitor, and they said that they were going to kill me. I was to die in an open field in the middle of nowhere with my hands tied there just because of that. It is only by the mercy of God that I am here today, speaking to you in your pajamas. I was, excuse me, I was discovered semi-naked and bound in a vacant field by a local indigenous woman and her dog. I phoned my family and they came to take me to the hospital. After I was discharged from the hospital, I submitted a report, of course, of what happened to the local authorities. But of course, that report fell on deaf ears. From that moment until today, I still suffer from nightmares. And excuse me, I get a little nervous whenever I say this story. Whenever I say this story, again and again. Thank you. So, like I was saying, I still have nightmares. I can't sleep well. I have panic attacks. But anyways, when the Venezuelan government found out that I survived from the hospital documents, they sent the military to arrest me. It was obvious that my only choice was to leave my family and my country behind because I wasn't safe anywhere. The military in Venezuela has control over the entire country. And I didn't know how I was going to do that because I didn't have any money and I didn't have any plan and I didn't have anyone. But again, by the mercy of God, I had some friends, a married couple that was living in Indiana that offered to pay for my plane ticket. They offered to loan me the money. And then in 2018, I left my home, my family, and my life behind to come here to the United States. I only had one small piece of luggage. I remember I had no money, no plan, and a huge debt with my friends. But if I had stayed in Venezuela, I would have been killed for sure. And the reality is, sadly, my story is not a unique story. There are millions and millions of immigrants who flee the horror every day to come to the United States. It is a risky decision. It's not voluntarily. It is risky to leave your home for a country you don't know, a completely foreign nation. But there's no choice. The risk is weighted against the certainty of death in your country. So I arrived in the US and I asked for asylum under political grounds. I had a huge debt for plane tickets, rent, and food. So I had to make money by babysitting. I translated for freelance websites as much as I could because I spoke English. I cleaned kitchens. Um, I had to survive as much as possible until I received my permission to work. I'm reading you. I'm reading you. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. It's a way to look. Yes. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening. And excuse me if I don't read your messages right away. It's just that I'm not very used to all this technology. It feels a little impersonal, but I'm so happy to read all of your messages. So I was telling you that it was really hard. It was really hard for me while I was waiting for my permission to work because I couldn't make any money. You know, it was complicated. I didn't really understand how things work here very well. I didn't have any contact with the exterior much. And I had no money to rent my own place, no credit history, no references. And don't get me started on the ridiculous Indiana winters. I don't know how any of you tolerate the cold here. It's just awful. This is a picture of me during my first winter. Fortunately, my friends loaned me some winter clothes because my clothes from the land of the beloved sun didn't seem to work in the land of the endless winter. um, oh, that happened to you when you moved to Nashville? I know, right? It's, yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, this story is not so unique. Well, I don't know if it happened to you, Devon, but I miss my family a lot. I miss my church, my food, and of course my rhythm of work. I felt very useless here. Sorry. I felt very useless because I could not do any of the work I was doing and gave me a sense of purpose. I was so angry because I was forced to leave my home. My own government forced me for no reason other than ideological differences. So in the winter of 2018, I joined as a volunteer of the American Red Cross. It was the first thing that reminded me of home. It was the first familiar thing. I volunteered virtually using my friend's computer because I did not have a computer or a car. I was applying for jobs, but it was very hard because I didn't know where to start or how the process was. I didn't really understand the system. It was hard. And I remember that with great effort, I managed to attend an on-site event for the Red Cross. Actually, this picture is the picture of that day, of that on-site event I went to. And that is when I met Marina Waters. Marina Waters is that woman over there next to me. She is the president of Luna Language Services. Luna is a company that provides language services to the Indiana community and other places in the US and the world. Luna has a strong belief in the strength of diversity and diversity as the key for progress. This is why their employees come from all around the world. So Marina encouraged me to stay in contact and to apply for a job with Luna. And I did. The Luna team called me back for an interview. And I currently work at Luna in the legal department as a law and policy associate. That's me and that's the Luna team. I also work with language access initiatives and development for limited English speaking populations in Indiana for people that struggle with language in the US. And I have to tell you, working for Luna has been an incredible, encouraging and fulfilling experience. They made me feel at home from the very beginning. The first day I remember I went there, I saw a picture on a wall. You can see I put that picture, I took a picture of it. And that's my family over there. The very first picture, the one that looks the biggest, that's what I saw on the first day I went to Luna. I was so shocked. They had asked for that picture the previous day. And if you see in the other picture, there's a gratitude wall. And someone wrote a message there to me saying, "Thank you for being here." And they left a little card, handwritten card on my desk. They made me feel like it wasn't just a job. It made me feel that they were happy to have me. I I was so happy to have a job, and Luna has helped me in many ways, but perhaps the greatest opportunity they provided for me was the opportunity to build a new home here in the US, to earn my own money, to be independent. If you like a sense of normality. It's a privilege to have come to the US and begin a new life. I was fortunate enough because one, I speak English. I spoke English before I came. Two, I received education that opened doors for me. And three, I built relationships that opened new doors and new opportunities. I I overcame many obstacles, and of course, I still struggle with other obstacles, but my story is not a sad story. I look back at it with fondness. I feel safe here in the US. And above all, I'm alive. You you might not hear much about immigrants like me because we don't have a dramatic newsworthy story of death at the sea or in the desert because we haven't become celebrities, athletes, or owners of big companies. But our stories are stories of success. And that success is possible with the support of organizations like the Red Cross, like Luna Languages, like your organizations. And one of the biggest challenges for immigrants to get involved in their communities and access health services, education, and jobs is language. I was fortunate enough, like I said, to speak English before coming here, but for many other immigrants, this isn't true. Yes, your story is one of a term. Thank you so much. You felt the same way when you came to America? I know. I'm telling you, winter is awful. Yes, it's true. All of that is true. Yeah. And it's very important for us to know. That's why we shouldn't just show the statistics to people because, like I said, statistics are just numbers. They don't really give you a sense of what's really going on and what are the experiences of this immigrant population, especially the immigrants in Indiana. And talking about language, over half a million residents in Indiana do not speak English at home. The census in 2017, the U.S. Census Bureau recorded the usage of 39 languages in Indiana, but we know that they are undercounting because over 100 languages are represented in our state. This is why the new census, the 2020 census, will be interesting because the census has been translated into 59 languages so that people can complete it in their native languages, including ASL as well, so American Sign Language. So language usage will definitely be more accurate this time. I'm going to read you right now. Yes, the stories are very important. Amazing obstacles. But God puts people in our lives for a reason. That is completely true. I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, like I told you before, Indiana is one of the states with the fastest growing immigrant populations in the country, okay? Luna recorded, according to Luna Languages Services records of 2020, these languages you see in these slides are the most requested languages. So we have Spanish, American Sign Language, Burmese and Burmese dialects, Punjabi, and Arabic. Those are the most requested. And this makes a lot of sense. Like I said, this is part of our culture as in Indiana, as a state. This is part of who we are, okay? Indiana has received refugees from more than 160 countries. The biggest group of refugees we have is Burmese refugees. Did you know that Indiana has the highest population of Burmese people that come from Burma, other than Burma, in the world? Is fascinating. It's fascinating. On top of that, 1 in 20 Hoosiers are foreign born. And also, I want to make a quick comment on this point because the fact that you are born in the United States, that doesn't mean that you speak English as your native language. So just take that into account. What is more and more shocking, the immigrant population in Indiana keeps growing and growing, and the U.S. Census projects that by 2025, Indiana will be a minority-majority state. So the minority will become the majority. This is who we are. These are the members of our communities that also want to thrive and contribute to society. They want to be useful. Language should not be a barrier for them to have access to that, which is something that us as organizations must advocate for. Language access and culture acclimation remains a crucial tool for immigrants in the workforce as well. Also, and I can attest for this, I can tell you that this is completely true. Culturally, the American economic system is much more complex than the survival environment that many refugees and immigrants come from. This is why, according to the US Refugee Resettlement Program report, they lack a legitimate shot at becoming employed, conversant, self-sufficient under the current system. And of course, this means that they are more susceptible to be in poverty. Of course it does. So this is an obstacle not only for immigrants, but for our country to use their potential for the country's economy, especially because, as you can see here, the growth in the country's workforce will be driven by an increase in the number of immigrants workers between now and 2035. Why? Well, as the baby boomer generation leaves the workforce, the number of working age adults born in the United States will decline by 8.2 million. This is the yellow line that you see in the image. Balancing out this decline will be the growth of the number of working age immigrants and their children. This is the orange line. So what does this mean? That without new immigrants, the total population of working age adults is expected to decline over the next 20 years. And let me tell you another interesting fact. Another interesting fact is that the government projects that the economy will add 9.8 million jobs between 2014 and 2024. But the labor force will only grow by 7.9 million workers. In other words, the economy will grow faster than the workforce will. So if immigration in the United States is reduced, the working age population will grow more slowly or not at all. In other words, with less immigration to the US, the economy will be slower. Because of that, projections confirm that American employees will increasingly rely on immigrant workers. According to the National Immigration Forum, over the next 40 years, all the growth in the US workforce will come from immigrants and their children. What do you think of that? It is essential, therefore, that we provide these workers with opportunities to reach their full potential. So, as community leaders, how can you best support the integration of Indiana immigrants? And I'm going to talk about things that you might already know, or you might not already know. The first thing is establish partnerships. Establish partnerships with organizations that help connect immigrants with the services they need. What are the services they need? Well, you can see an example of organizations here that provide services as food aid, language training, interpretation services, job training and location, transport, civic education classes, etc. For example, churches play a significant role in the life of immigrants in the US, and they have a lot of contact with immigrants. Exodus Refugee is also a great resource for multiple services. Luna Language Services, of course, is a resource for language access. But there are many organizations like libraries, like museums, even the IUSCIAs, the department of the government that deals with immigration and citizenship. Even they can give you educational materials that you can share. There's also an organization called Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic that provides legal orientation for free to immigrants. All of those are great resources. These are organizations you can partner with that you can take into account when you plan your events, for example. Also, if you are working on something on your own organization and you want to communicate that to as many audiences as you can, use visual communication techniques. This is mostly for people that can't speak English. On this side, we have images. Use images. If you can communicate the information with images rather than text, go ahead and do that. You will reach a bigger population, part of the population. Use simple translations to communicate information to your target group. And then this, on the other side, this image you can see, this is a card. It's called Point to Your Language card. And there are a series of languages, and it can say get an interpreter or I speak this language. This is going to help your clients and your user and your staff to communicate effectively with limited English speaking and the deaf and hard of hearing as well. These materials are specifically designed to show how to access interpreting services quickly and efficiently, and to create an awareness that that service is actually available. We also have a very important point that I know in other conferences you have talked about this in depth, so I'm not going to talk about it a lot because you know more than me about this, but showing messages of inclusion in different languages is so powerful. It empowers people. It makes people feel like they can approach that organization, that office, that person, that they are welcomed. Allow people to display objects that hold meaning to their own culture. And I'm going to tell you something that we do at Luna. I'm a Christian, so I was born in a Christian family, and I'm a Christian. So December is very important for me. I celebrate the birth of Jesus. And I have my Christmas tree, and I have my Christmas prayers, and you know, I have a picture of like Jesus and all that. But next to me is my dear friend and coworker Lori. She's a Jew, and she has on her desk she has these candles to celebrate her lights, the Hanukkah celebration, and she had a beautiful llama with her hat, and you know, it was a Jewish llama, and I enjoyed so much that I felt like we were different but part of the same group, and all of that was effortless. It was just because we are allowed to display our cultural objects, so it does create a big impact. And of course, all of this leads to a very important point, personal connection. You already know this. If you want to have personal connection with a person that doesn't speak English, first of all, be patient. Like many important things in life, it takes patience to develop relationships. So you have to be patient with those who can't speak your language, but make eye contact and smile, show friendliness, approachability, and care. This, after all, is how we start any relationship in our lives, how we communicated when we were children. We didn't talk. So that is how we communicate with our pets, for example. Our body language is very important. If a person does speak English, then talk. Find a way to communicate something, to reveal something about yourself that the other person can relate to, if you are comfortable with that, of course. You can show them a picture of your family, of your pet, ask them about their favorite meal, etc. At Luna, for example, every time we have a staff meeting, there's one person that gets up and shares a little bit about their life. They talk about their life story. This is an example. This is a picture of one of our friends at work. He was talking about the traditions in Mexico and how his family was, etc. It's very, very interesting, and it makes you feel more connected to that person and as a whole, as a group. And if you are not the CEO of a major organization, you know, you don't have the decision power or whatever, you can always do something yourself. I have here in this slide, donate, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to donate money. You can donate time, you can donate clothes. For example, during December, a group of friends from work and I got together and gathered winter clothes and Christmas presents for kids to be delivered, to be donated to shelters in Indianapolis. That day, all kids received a Christmas present, and candy made their day. Many of these families come from different countries. Many of these families don't speak English, but they had, at least that day of Christmas, they had a nice day. Another thing you can do is to support immigrant entrepreneurship. This picture you see here is actually my favorite food. It comes from Venezuela. It's called arepa. It's very delicious. And I want to tell you a story about supporting immigrant entrepreneurship. A person that chooses to remain anonymous is not me, but I know the person, but I won't say, made a $200 purchase to an arepa restaurant located in Indianapolis, in Allisonville, I think. And they made a $200 purchase of arepas, and then that food, they gave it to a shelter. So, and this was during the coronavirus. This was very recently. So they supported this immigrant. The owners are some Venezuelan immigrants, as actually they're Asylees. So they supported the business, and at the same time they donated food for people in need. Another thing you can do is be inclusive. Be inclusive. Think about these populations when you're planning an event, when you're posting about your organization online. Think about them, how to better communicate with them. What can you contribute to, help them overcome these challenges as an organization? And last but not least, you can always volunteer. Do you speak Spanish? Do you speak legalese, like we say? Do you have teaching experience? Do you know how to make a photocopy? Do you have time? Do you have a car? Do you have a spare room? Then you might be the perfect candidate to volunteer with immigrant populations, both documented and undocumented. And the list of organizations that I gave you before have great opportunities for you to volunteer. It's a one-of-a-kind experience. You have no idea how much you can help with so little. And at the end of the day, it's all about connection. It's all about also emotions, because connection equals opportunities. Opportunities equal motivation, and motivation equals success. And before all of this happened to me, I used to agree with the typical success beliefs, phrases like, oh, you just need to work hard for what you want, or, oh, success is simple, just don't take no for an answer, or don't make up any excuses. And my favorite is, quit talking, begin doing, But if someone had told me that when I first came here, I would have told them, you don't know anything. You don't know anything. So my personal experience and the experiences of many others that have been shared with me during my lifetime and that I have seen with my own eyes tell me that success is just the process. It's the journey. It's you striving for something, yes, but it is impossible that someone succeeds alone. Whether it is someone telling you about a job opportunity or giving you tips, how to get something cheaper, where to go, where to get food, or teaches you how to access a Zoom meeting, maybe. Maybe they just ask you how you are. How are you? How's your family? We do not make it alone. No one makes it alone. Now, nowadays, I believe more of this type of phrases. Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has had to overcome while trying to succeed. And I would like to end this to open to questions, but I would like to end this with you by saying that, like my boss Marina says, we all want to be part of a successful story, even if it's not our own. So let's all be successful and be part of successful stories. Thank you. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions or any comments, I still have 9 minutes with you. I can take those right now. And thank you for listening to all of this. I hope you enjoyed it. So there's a question from Tiffany Hansen. Hi, Tiffany. What are some of the immigrant support organizations or resources that you found especially helpful or would recommend to others? Well, the list I had before, let me see if I can share that with you again. The list I have here are the ones that I think are most useful. See, I'm having problems again trying to share my screen with you. Share screen. Okay, perfect. Here. So these organizations I think are very useful. First of all, because if you join one of these organizations, for example, if you first came here as a Latin woman, even though I speak English, if I see an arepa or if I see someone that talks in the accent that I speaks in the accent that I speak, I'm gonna feel uh, happy. I'm gonna feel that it's something familiar. So working with organizations that are culture oriented, for example, the multiple Latino organizations that we have here, is a great way to make those people feel welcomed. And of course, I have to say, Exodus Refugee does an amazing work with refugees. They have different programs and volunteer programs as well. You can donate, and they even prepare a room for people that just don't have anything. They don't know where they're going to sleep when they come to this country. You can even help arrange that room, make donations. They have interpreters. They're a great, very complete organization when it comes to receiving refugees. Of course, Luna Language Services. Luna has provided services for years, for more than 50 years, to the immigrant community. They know immigrants well. We provide services for over 100 languages. So language is a very, very important part of that transition that we live as immigrants in the US. But there are many, many organizations. The Red Cross was salvation for me because it was the first thing that looked familiar to me and made me feel useful. So that's why I think it's very important to listen to people's stories, to kind of individualize that attention that you want, or those services or that help that you want to provide. Yes. Oof. Um, I have another question here. What tips do you give to help others build their resilience when going through experiences or change? Yeah. Well, for me, because I have religious beliefs, praying is a big, big portion of what gives me peace and what helps me move on and continue. I believe that prayers are very powerful. But if you don't have religious beliefs or you don't find prayers to be as powerful, I think also doing meditation and talking to yourself helps a lot. Telling yourself that you're not the only one living this situation, that there are many people live in this situation, similar situations, and that if they can survive and if they can make it, you can make it too. Look at me. I was going to die. I was going to die. I thought I was never going to see my mother again. I thought that, that was the end for me at such a young age. And here I am talking to you in the United States as if, I had something very, very important to say. And I'm alive and I have a job and I made it. And if I can make it, you can make it. Also, I think it's very important to build a community of support, to build a community. Don't remain alone, because when you stay alone, I know it's hard for people that don't speak the language. It's for us that speak the language, it's even harder because yes, you speak the language, but you can express yourself well. I prefer to speak Spanish rather than English. This was really nerve-wracking to me. I was like this, ooh, am I pronouncing this right? Are they going to understand my accent? All those sorts of things. But I think not staying alone is crucial. Building a community of support. Go to church, or, go to a group, or go walk and walk, take a breath. I think the basic tips for mental health would work on this case too. But as it is, because it is very difficult for immigrants to think about these things, and you usually don't think about these things because you have more important things to think about, like, oh, how am I going to get money, or how am I going to survive the day. You don't stop and think, I'm going to call someone, or ooh, I'm going to take a walk. So that's why it's very important to talk to people, because you don't know what that person is going through. Even if they don't want to talk, many of us don't want to be in our own world, just thinking with our own thoughts. So I think communicating with people is very, very important. Being friendly to people is very, very important. I hope that that answers your question. Anna says you're doing great. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing this moment with me. I hope you can get out of this moment with good tips and information and a new perspective about immigrants in the US. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I hope you have a great day.